Before Teresa Zeng became a full-time graduate at DSPT, she had a long business career in the financial industry. Previously, she worked in several managerial and leadership positions at Morgan Stanley, State Street Bank, Acadian, and also as the general manager of global markets of China Life Asset Management Company. Teresa was born and raised in mainland China and received her BS in mathematics at Sichuan University. In the US, she received her master's degree in statistics from the University of Illinois, Chicago. Afterward, she received her Doctor of Science degree in biostatistics from the Harvard School of Public Health. She's now currently working on her concurrent MA thesis at DSPT using contemporary hermeneutics and biblical criticism.
Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of my reflections. Aaron, thank you for your introduction, but there's one fact I think I better disclose first. I'm a recent convert to Catholicism at the ripe old age of 45. So you can see my experience in Catholicism is very limited. But on the other side, I am the other. Not only I grew up in a different country, I speaking a different language, I also have worked in the business field for many years. So I hope my reflection, if you can take a tablespoon of salt, just to say that's my reflection, all right? Okay, so I think the point of tension, one of them, is of Catholic laity, is that there is what Dr. Moreland called the liquid modernity, in which the form is cultural alienation. What I mean by that is everyday. It's very small things. It's the leisure life. I put it rather crudely. That is, the challenge being a lay Catholic is this. Non-Catholic look at us as an odd piece out. We seem to be out of contact with leisure activities, and particularly in popular cultural forums. I'm not talking about high culture, I'm talking about very low ones. But let me state my thesis here. Lay scholars and thinkers may do well to provide intellectual leadership to engage productively in reducing cultural alienation in the everyday life of our church. This engagement, I believe, primarily is a practical, prudential one, not a theoretical or apologetic one. I'm not talking about changing people's hearts and minds to become Catholic while we're watching Netflix. In fact, the most significant part of the lay leadership is to provide a solid foundation of contemporary cultural competency for all Catholic, especially for clergy, religious in the position of pastoral care, education, and other functional formation. So, having said that, I want to share with you some of my own reflections. So, first I want to just say something about the student handbook, which is not here, is to say that the students aim to become leaders who inspire with others the desire to realize the common good by articulate to academy and society a coherent vision rooted in the mission of the church, all the while lead by example. Within the objective, that is this kind of we live in the everyday life among friends and family, having dinner. So I situate this question in who we are as an everyday person. What I put on some slides, probably font size is too small, but I just want to show the kind of resources, scholarly, we can available to us to think about this. We can think about the sanctity of everyday life, Aristotle's friendship with others, the importance, the minor virtues of sociability and amiability. But what I think is most importantly morally is we are the significant for others. We are part of their key social plausibility structure. So we cannot opt out. So for me, I think the interesting thing is take a first-person embedded stance to this question. Now, so I want to highlight the problem. The problem is pop culture, not my favorite one. I see a lot of my friends and students here, even my husband, who is a specialist in this field by watching so much Netflix over there. So But also, as you know, I was a quantitative analyst for many years. I was head of quant for Morgan Stanley. So forgive me, I have to show you some data, but I promise you it's not that bad. Okay. So, hey, isn't that exciting? Okay, so this is the yes, pie chart. But I will see what it is. This is the U.S. Bureau Statistics about leisure time. So this pie chart and the bar chart are very similar, just 2 different years, one with male and female breakdown. But what it essentially says, we have 5 hours of leisure time every day. Almost 3 hours we're in front of some kind of screen, watching TV and stream. That's the blue part over there. And then we have some texting, socialization, and sports, 20 minutes, reading, 18 minutes, so you can go through your New York Times very quickly. But what is essentially about this is the reality. It's a facticity of the world. It's not my choice. But the next question I think is interesting about this, I was gonna say is I think it's Dr. Molan mentioned about, or maybe somebody else talking about the choice of freedom, the personality of freedom. Okay, so what's actually interesting about this data, I'm gonna show you, is exactly by choice. What are we watching? Because we are streaming Netflix and other things, they know what we are watching. So here, I'm just gonna read in some of the titles here, just the guilty will be chuckling. But anyway, so Father Michael talked about the depths of Catholic imagination. I will show you the depths and breadth of non-Catholic imagination here. Started with the masterpiece Star Trek. I learned English from Star Trek, so don't say anything bad about it. Seriously. And we go down for the overall from something like South Park, Rick and Morty. I used to think that's children's cartoon. Then my husband said, no, the genre is called Adult Swim cartoon. I don't want to know. Anyway, so, but what we see this is actually interesting. On the digital signals, we see the sci-fi, vampire, and ghost of that. So what we make of this, is this so low we should walk away from? So my next question is saying from C.S. Lewis. I have to read this because Father Anselm will remember this is from the miracle class. Almost the whole of Christian theology could perhaps be deduced from 2 facts. 1, that men make coarse jokes, and B, that they feel dead to be uncanny. The coarse joke claims that we have here an animal who finds its own animality either objectionable or just funny. Our feeling about the dead is equally odd. So I think this is some theoretical research there. But I also want to point out a lot of important theologians, C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, has written fabulous narrative and fantasies. But that's not what I want to talk. What Father Edward Krasovec has highlighted to me recently about this idea of the social reality research by the great social scientist Peter Berger. What I just want to say is this. Because we live in the everyday life, we are part of the plausibility structure of others. We obtain our notion about the world original from other human beings, and this notion continues to be plausible to us in a very large measure because others continue to affirm them. That is, we matters to others. The significant other in the individual's life are the principal agent for the maintenance of his subjective reality. But I want to say this. If you lose the shared time, you will be getting downgraded. Your kids will stop talking to you. Your brother will think you're nuts. So, which I have. So that is very important. So what I want to look about is this. We talk about conversation, come to a hint. This is the reality we hear. You do your thing, I do mine. Even the baby has the iPhone right there. I don't think there's a caricature. I see this all the time. So I think the great part of everyday conversation is vital for us to maintain connectedness with others. We cannot afford to you watch yours, I do mine. So I want to almost finish on the Jacques Maritain on artistic judgment. He said, I want to read it out, I do not ask for easygoing judgment, but we have a right to require also is that this judgment be truly an artistic judgment. It must not set out to judge art from the mountain peaks of incompetency, which is sure of itself and yet know nothing about the law and internal reality of the things judged. It must itself be aware of the human and spiritual dignity of that special universe, which is the universe of artistic creation. It must buttress itself by genuine knowledge of the structure and principle of such a universe. So if you talk to anyone and you mess up Star Wars and Star Trek, you're out. I just want to tell you that. So the last kind of a couple of shots here. What I think is very important is to talk about I'm suggesting we create the condition of possibility of the dialogue. That's a Kantian term. Finally, I have some use there. Okay, finally. Father Anselm will be pleased. So I want a distinction of the sharing moment is not always a teaching moment. We cannot be the taste arbiters. You tell your kids that what he's watching, his video game is stupid, you're done. So I want to emphasize that pre-critical domain-specific learning and competency is vitally important before we can judge anything. So I'm going to conclude by this is saying, I think the leadership in cultural competency is enhancing the life skill of Catholics in sharing the common life with others. It's not primarily about forming critical judgment, but for us to influence others and be meaningful others.